What's up, everybody? On today's video, we were detained by border agents and I could be deported soon. Well, we were detained by border agents. They searched our vehicle, they asked us if we had anything on us, and, pretty much I could get deported very soon if I stay in Canada for more than 6 months, but I'm only going to be here for about 2 weeks. So with that being said, I probably won't get deported. But when we entered Canada, we did get searched extensively. I guess we drove into the wrong line, and that kind of raised some red flags for them, and they searched our vehicle extensively. We had to answer questions about everything about our life, and for a good 30 minutes, it was pretty scary. But then we were released into Canada, and you can only be here for 6 months. Of course, we're only going to be here for a short period of time because we pay too much money for our apartment in Florida to have it vacant. So we'll be back in Florida soon. And I came across the idea of what countries, now that I'm a U.S. citizen, what countries will deport me back into the United States. I've had a lot of people on my channel say they hope I get deported. I guess I could get deported if I stayed in Canada for over 6 months, but I don't want to be here that long, so that's not going to happen. But if anybody knows of a country that will deport me back to the United States without getting me arrested or anything like that, just for something simple, if anybody knows of a country that will deport you back to the United States, please let me know, because it would be cool if I could get deported. The problem is that I haven't really found a country. I've looked all over the internet, a country that will just simply deport you back to the United States. You guys have been wanting me to get deported for a while. I see the comments every single day from people saying, Jose, I hope you get deported and go back to your country. Well, or get sent back to my country. It would be nice, but I don't think, I guess Canada would want me to stay here for 6 months before they would deport me. And I don't know if we could expedite that process somehow, but Canada told me pretty much you have to be here for 6 months before you get deported. And I really don't want to be here that long. So if anybody knows of a country that will deport me back into the United States, perhaps I could try the southern border and see if they'll deport me, but I don't know if they will or not. But anyways, if anybody knows of a country that will deport me back to the United States, then I can get deported, because the Canadians are like, where are you from, boy? And I was like, I'm Cuban, man. And they're like, sir, you're an American. I'm Cuban, man. And they're like, yeah, but you're an American now. So I was like, you guys want to deport me back to Cuba? And they're like, no, we're going to deport you back to the United States. And I was like, well, that would be a problem for a lot of people there, because anyways, yes, I could get deported if I stayed in Canada, but I have no intentions of staying in Canada. It's too freaking cold, and their Tim Hortons is worse than Dunkin' Donuts. So no, I don't have any intentions of staying in Canada more than a few weeks. There it is. How I could end up getting deported to the United States is if I were to stay in Canada for over 6 months, which I have no intentions of doing, really. For a minute, I thought I was going to get deported back to the United States, because they were very skeptical about why I was entering their country, why I wanted to record, and why it seemed like I was going to get deported back to Detroit. But luckily, they didn't do that, and we're here in Canada. And if you're crossing into Canada, you should know a few things. You are not allowed to bring any armaments. Now, I had quite a few of them on me. As a typical American, we are armed to the teeth. Turns out that you're not allowed to bring anything of this sort into Canada, but you are allowed to bring your shank. They will want to know why you have so many shanks on you and how much time you spent in Folsom Prison down there, Alcatraz Island or something, or Rikers Island, where you think you need to be armed to the teeth. But anyways, they found it quite amusing that I had a machete in the trunk. And I did have a very legitimate reason for having a machete in the trunk, because I have camouflage clothing and a metal detector. And I'm like, yo, I'm just going metal detecting in the woods. Therefore, I was able to import my machete into Canada. Most of the time, if you bring a sword into their country, they think you're freaking insane. But, as is typical for American travelers, we're usually armed to the teeth. And when they found out how many weapons I had on me, not that they were illegal in Canada, but they just want to take a closer look at you if you have a machete in the trunk. But anyways, you do have to claim whatever weapons you have, and the vast majority of American hand pieces are not welcome here in Canada. Now, you hear Americans say all the time, it keeps you safe, it makes it safer, you're safer. I'm gonna tell you that the murder rate in Canada is so low. I mean, literally, like, the murder rate of Canada is like less than half of the United States. But on top of that, they don't really have, like, the most dangerous cities in Canada would be in the top 10 safest in the United States. Yeah, wrap your head around that. The top 3 most dangerous cities in Canada by murder rate would be in the top 10 safest in the United States. Just gives you an idea that you don't really need to carry an M16 to go to Walmart. But if you ask an American, you gotta have your guns. Guns make the world a safer place. Yeah, here in Canada it's very safe, and nobody's carrying an M16 to Walmart. But at the end of the day, you can't talk sense into people, you know. It's one of those things where, like, you could show people all the analytics in the world to show to them that the things they believe in don't exactly make sense. But anyways, as we know, it's a constitutional right. That means you have a right to have that. Nobody can take that away from you. But just because it's a constitutional right doesn't exactly mean it justifies the analytics that clearly prove that a place like Canada, where there's more restrictions, it's a whole lot safer. And not only are you not going to get whacked in Toronto like you will in Detroit, but they don't have too many homeless people here. Quite literally, I have seen more homeless people going from my house to the beach than I have in Toronto, a city of 10 million people. There are some suburbs that have a little bit more homelessness, but it's on par with a nice place in the United States. So it seems like they have a whole lot less homelessness, and they have definitely no incentive to whack anybody. So I think my machete really isn't going to be used for self-defense here in Canada. It probably has never been used for self-defense in the United States too much. But anyways, at the end of the day, Canada is a very safe place. Toronto is a very diverse city. It looks like Canada pretty much looks better than the United States. It's safer, it's cleaner. There's a lot more diversity here. There's like Sri Lankans, Filipinos, lots of Indian, Punjabi. Like, there's just so much diversity here. It looks a lot cleaner. It doesn't really have any ghettos or hoods or bad areas. Like, you would be very hard pressed to find bad areas here in Canada, at least in the part that I've been so far in Toronto. So it seems like for the most part, Canada is a very safe, very clean country that will deport you if you have any intentions of staying here more than 6 months. And they're very cautious of people coming here for work. I think what they really were concerned about with me is that I was trying to enter their country to work. But I guess since my YouTube channel is already established and I'm only coming for a short period of time, they don't really care. But it seems like they were concerned with me, especially, I guess, with the Florida tags. 2 red flags. Actually 3 red flags now. One red flag is that there's not a lot of work in Florida, and there's a lot more work here in Canada. So it seems like they were concerned that I was coming here for work. Number 2, Florida tags. Why would you drive a car from Florida all the way to Toronto? That's a very extensive road trip. And apparently not a lot of people have enough time in their hands like I do to embark on a journey that massive. They found it odd that I didn't fly into Toronto. I drove a car with rims into Toronto. So that was kind of odd for them, that I would go on just an extensive road trip. On top of that, 3rd red flag is, of course, the new laws that are taking place in Florida. They really thought that I was coming to Canada to seek asylum of some sort, maybe because of what's going on in Florida. I've never seen so many Florida tags throughout the country. I believe about 700,000 people are going to be leaving the state of Florida here soon. and they are refugees because they're mostly from Haiti, which is pretty much watch the news, Venezuela, which is pretty much watch the news. So these are mostly really refugees that have nowhere to go. But it's different how in Canada, the immigrant communities here are economically better off. They're not treated like garbage like we are in the United States. It really seems like they take care of the immigrants here. Now, does that mean it's a perfect world in Canada? Absolutely not. You see a lot of signs that are clearly like protect our immigrant groups, and you see other signs that pretty much say not so friendly towards immigrant groups. So there is kind of a battle going on there, just like in the United States. With the difference is that Canada has really done immigration better than the United States. If you're coming into Canada from another country, you really have to have money and your crap in order. It's like the United States immigrants that go to the United States don't learn English, don't really get acclimated very well. And immigrants that enter Canada already have their paperwork in order for the most part. They usually are going to speak English more fluently and are going to acclimate more to feeling like Canadians than in the United States. Where I feel like in the United States, a lot of immigrant groups are also more belligerent in how they go about themselves because they don't feel welcome. But like if you're like in Miami, everybody's blasting their music, everybody's like letting you know, identifying their nationality by their behavior. But in Canada, it seems like nobody blasts music or does any of that stuff. So it seems like there's kind of a more civilized approach to immigration in Canada. And, you know, a lot of the things that Americans believe to be true are definitely not true for sure. You know, weapons are not really, it's just kind of early in the morning, I'm still waking up. But weapons in Canada are not really as necessary because it's safer, or they don't have that culture of thinking that it's good when it really isn't statistically. So it's not as dangerous in Canada. Immigrant groups here are kind of more civilized, more organized, and more, well, they kind of feel more Canadians than many immigrant groups moving into the United States, where even like myself, and if you become a U.S. citizen, you still have a stigma of being an immigrant. So it seems like in Canada, they're doing immigration better, they're doing safety better. Road safety, you know, speed limits are less. It seems like roads are safer. There's a lot more safety implements. Like, it really feels like in Canada, safety is important. Like, whether you're on a highway or at a park, you'll just notice that there's more attention to safety here. So overall, I think it's less reckless and less manslaughter than the United States. It's more of a civilized place, and it kind of feels like you have a higher standard of living. But of course, housing costs here is higher, and incomes in Canada are a little bit less than the United States. So overall, I think that Canada, from what I can tell so far, is doing a few things better than the United States, especially when it comes to immigration policy. They attract wealthy, well-to-do immigrants, and it's made their country a much better place. Like when you look at Toronto, you can't compare Toronto to Miami. I mean, there's better infrastructure, there's more buildings. Even like the suburbs of Toronto, the suburbs have their own skylines, like more buildings. Like if you think Miami's got a lot of building, it's nothing compared, or Orlando, it's nothing compared to what's going on in Toronto. They're really putting in more buildings, more infrastructure. There's a lot of investment, possibly more foreign money for sure, it looks like. Radio stations in different languages. It's almost like they've attracted people and money from all over the world into their country, where the United States is only attracting like poor immigrant groups, people that are fleeing wars and stuff. So their approach to immigration attracts better people, and I think the United States approach to immigration is kind of like let a group move in, don't help them, make sure that their community fails, and then when they move out or get deported or get, you know, run out, another group fills their spot. And that's kind of what's been happening. Like Miami, you had Cubans, then you had Haitians, then now you have Venezuelans, and now you have like Ukrainians or whatever. And it's like, but every single one of those communities that moves in gets economically deprived to the point where they leave, and then their voids filled in by another group. Or it was like parts of Florida was like Mexicans were replaced by Guatemalans, and now Guatemalans are being replaced. And it's like a constant cycle of immigrant groups getting ran out of the country or getting ran out of communities and making sure that they fail. Where like Canada, grabs their immigrant groups and they make sure they're successful, but the United States grabs immigrant groups and makes sure that they're failures to say, hey, look, this is what happens when you have immigrants in your country. Look, they have a lot of crime. Look, they're in poverty. Of course they are. You're not helping them. You're making sure that they failed to say that they failed. But it seems like in Canada, their approach to immigration is a lot more practical. Of course, the winters are absolutely brutal here in Canada. That is a definite deterrent to a lot of people. And I guess housing cost is more expensive. So it's not perfect. It seems like mostly you're going to have to work a lot harder here too. It seems like cost of living here is a little bit more difficult to obtain, where like the United States economically, like I feel like you could have $20,000 in the United States and probably be better off than somebody in Canada with $200,000, because it just seems like money runs a lot longer in the United States, or everything's more obtainable. And there's also a lot of scams for tourists. One thing that I've noticed is that I almost got scammed at a Marriott hotel. Yeah. Not in a bad neighborhood, no, in a Marriott. Not this one we're in right now, but another Marriott in Toronto. When I went to check in, we played the stupid tourist card. We walked in, we looked tired, we had all our luggage. We looked like complete idiots walking to this hotel with a huge amount of luggage. We just looked like idiots. So the guy pretended to be very friendly. Now, he just happened to be Indian. Now, the last time I ran into a hotel scam in the United States in West Virginia, the guy was also Indian. So we're starting to see a trend of this. And then nothing against Indian people. I love Punjabi music. In fact, while being here in Canada, I have fallen in love with Punjabi music, which is going to join all the other odd genres of music that I listen to. Really great Punjabi music. But on top of that, it just seems like, putting the music aside, every time that I've been scammed in the United States or Canada has been Indians in that hotel. So here we go for scam number 2. The guy was asking me, but we looked like idiots walking the hotel, so my fault. You know, don't assume because Canada's safe that you're not going to get scammed. There's a lot of scams here. So you have to be really careful when you're paying for stuff. And it's not going to be like in sketchy environments. It's in environments where you're going to feel comfortable. Restaurants that are fancy, hotels that are fancy. You might let your guard down because it's a nicer establishment, and that is where you get scammed. So I'm in this nice Marriott. I'm trying to check in, and the guy goes, well, you know, you don't have a credit card. I can't let you check in. I was like, we were scared. We got shocked. We're like, oh, we're in a different country. What are we supposed to do now? And then he scares us into thinking we can't check in, and then he gives us an option. He's like, well, if you give me your credit card and let me hold on to it, I'll make an exception. Of course, that's not Marriott policy. That's not how Marriott works. And we've never, I mean, I'm an elite member at Marriott. I've had 200 or 300 Marriott stays in the last 2 years. I've never had Marriott do this to me. And then a light clicked on. I said, that's not right. Now, I have no problem sleeping in my car. I've done it before. So I was like, you're not getting my credit card. And then I'm like, run my debit card as debit, and it worked. So basically, what this guy was trying to do was scare me into thinking that that I wasn't gonna be able to pay for my hotel room. And then tell me that the only option I really had if I wanted to stay in the hotel was to let him hold my debit card overnight, which you never give anybody your debit card. So he scared us into thinking that our reservation wasn't gonna work. We weren't gonna get our hotel room because we have to have a credit card. Now, I have credit cards. Didn't bring them with me, personal reasons, won't get into it. But anyways, I didn't have a credit card, or I have our debit cards, which is not the way you want to travel. You always want to have a credit card. But again, personal reasons, I don't have one right now. I'll get one. Oh, it's taken too long to get it. They upped my limit, and when they upped my limit on the credit card, they never sent it. So I'm just waiting for my credit card to arrive. But when they did that, they canceled my other credit card, waiting for this one. So in the middle, I'm stuck with no credit cards, which you should always have when you travel. If you have to rent a car, airports, there's a lot of places where you only are allowed to use a credit card. Well, this guy knew that my debit card would work as a credit card, but he was trying to scare me into thinking that I had to use a credit card. And since I didn't have a credit card, that was a scam, so he can get a hold of my debit card. No, what he was probably going to do is write down my credit card information, wait a week or a month or two, and then start using it for personal use. And since you're already out of the country, what are you going to say? A guy in Canada took my card for too long or something? Like, he would have got away with it. So that's kind of how that scam works. Good thing a light clicked on in my head and I figured it out. So when I checked into this hotel, I walked to the front desk. A guy is again from India. I was very demanding. I said, I had a reservation. Here's my card. Here's my license. I want my checkout at this time. I want this and that and that and that. I was very demanding and rude to the person, not because I'm a rude idiot or belligerent jerk, but because I'm letting him know you're not going to push me around or you're not going to play any games with me. I know how this goes. So sometimes when you're a tourist, instead of being like, oh, I'm lost, I don't know where I'm at, maybe instead of being that tourist, sometimes you're better off being the demanding, arrogant tourist, because if you're not a pushover, you won't get scammed. And I think kind of the reason why I fell into this scam is because he scared me. I let him know I was scared. It would have been better if I would, and then I had Katie with me, which doesn't help because Katie was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna sleep in the car. What's gonna happen now? What are we gonna do? I can call a bank. And I was like, it made us look like idiots. So in the future, when you have a problem at a hotel or if your debit card, the best thing you can do is to regroup yourself and not show any type of emotion, because they're playing on that fear to give you a solution, which is most likely going to be something sketchy, but since you're afraid, you're going to go for it. And that's how a lot of these scams work. But anyways, that right there is an avid reason why you should definitely be careful when you travel. Always have a credit card when you travel, and be careful for scams. Keep everywhere you go, ask for a receipt. Keep your receipts, because there's a lot of scams, and they're not going to be like in the United States where they're going to carjack you or break into your car, which could happen here too. But the most likely scenario is keep all your receipts. Make sure when you go to hotels and places that you don't look like an idiot. There it is. And no, I won't be getting deported because I'm only going to be here for 2 weeks. But if you know a country that would deport me back to the United States without putting me in a prison for 10 years, let me know, because it would be a really cool project to try to go to another country to get deported.